Okay, so we are up to the chapter here, chapter 18 in the book of Genesis. And we are now in the stories of Avram and Sarah and some of their challenges. So the last thing we saw was Abraham is told he's going to have a child, right? Remember everyone was laughing, we talked about that. I explained to you, it's a very, very deep idea. I think we said in the last time, but it's a fascinating thing. We talked about the fact that they named the child Yitzchak, right? I explained that a little bit, right? We talked about that, yeah? Explain that. So now what's happening right now? As we said last time, the angels who are somehow in the form of people. It's very hard to understand this, by the way. And I mentioned this before. I want to repeat it again because angels is a very, very hard concept. It's a very misunderstood concept. I don't even like to use the word angels. The word in Hebrew is malach. We said before the word malach is from the idea milacha, action. The angels are not little guys who are God's helpers. God doesn't need little helpers. Right, all by himself. Doesn't need help us. That's not a Jewish concept. It's not. We don't believe that. I don't understand why. Does it make any sense? Why would God need helpers? It's not what it means. But it means, as I said last time, I'm going to repeat this because it's happening a lot in this chapter right now. It's like when you have the ways the physical world runs. Right. If I take my glasses and I drop them, which I'm not going to do right now, because I like them. These cost more than $1. Not much more, but if I drop them, then gravity will make it fall, right? So now, why does that work? Well, because God built a world that there are processes that he wants to happen. We call that the nature. So he built a world that he wants that things that are a certain mass will draw things to it, and that's what we will name gravity. Okay, so we give it a name. We name what this process is. This is the process that things are drawn back to back to the earth, down to the earth. Okay, fine. So those are laws that God created in the physical world, right? Now, what's the root of those things? The root of that is that God wants things to come down for whatever reasons. Or because we don't float up in the air, whatever the reasons are. Here's what he wants. Now, we qualify it and call it the idea of the law of gravity. Now, there's a very easy problem once you say that. So now, once I know laws of nature, so the untrained person will say, well, it's not God. It's gravity. Well, okay, I understand you call it gravity, but why does that do that? And science does not answer why. Science answers how. Because why should it be that way in the first place? I don't know, but that's the way it is. So science will give names to the laws of how the world works, and it will describe how it happens, but why it should be this way, well, that's not in the purview of science. Because the why is because, whatever reason, that's how God wanted the world to function. Okay? But you can start, when you see the laws of nature, you can either say, oh my gosh, these laws of nature, they bespeak the idea that there is an infinite force, an infinite creator, that has created the depth of this world. You could say that. Or not. Or you could say, well, it's just these laws. So in a certain sense, the laws of nature can actually conceal God from us, if we choose to. That's what malachim are. Angels are the spiritual rules of the world. There are spiritual systems in the world. And just like if you do certain things in the world, there are laws of nature, how they work. So too, there are laws in the spiritual worlds. As a matter of fact, we said many times, the way the world is built is that there's a physical world here. That's not where the action really is happening. That's where we see the results and we do things that cause effects. But where the effect originates from where we receive it is the spiritual worlds that parallel the physical world. And therefore, if you do a good action, we said it creates a chain reaction up to spiritual realms. And then there comes a flow down from the spiritual to the parallel physical world. The forces along that way is called the malachim, called the spiritual laws. Spiritual laws that cause, but it's not because God needs to help. he needs helpers, but he created a step-down system the same way that you see the law of gravity, and it makes you say, oh, is this concealing God or revealing God? Same thing with angels. These are processes that God created, that he created a step-down system because for us to receive God's light so powerfully without a step-down system would be something that would not be appropriate for where we are right now. As a matter of fact, it would transform us. Because if I shine a tremendous light, in your face, so it's going to blind you. Well, if I put veils over it, right, and I put screens over and filters over it, there's a certain point where you're able to actually handle the light, right? Those are part of the ways that you can get that process. The spiritual processes that God created, like the veils, that is the concept of malachim and of an angel, of a spiritual force. And the spiritual forces, this is fascinating, they each have one job, right? Because they are, just like you have a law of gravity, right? You'll have a spiritual force that'll have his function, what he functions in. But it's not like he's like, oh, this angel's really cool. He's so powerful. He does all these things. That's not what it is. He's a spiritual robot in that sense. He's a spiritual robot. It says he's spiritual, but he's not what a human being does. He doesn't have the qualities of affecting the world the way people do. Okay, but he's a spiritual law in the system, and therefore every spiritual force has its area. So when the three angels come to see Abraham, and they tell him he's going to have a child, there are three, because they all have a different job. There is the angel called Raphael. I guess in English it's called Raphael. How do they call it in English? Raphael, they call it, I guess? I don't know. Raphael. Now, what's his job? He is the one that brings the healing. That's why his name is Raphael, Rofe. He's healing from El, which is God. Raphael. Okay? Then another angel that came with them, his name was Gavriel. And Gavriel is the angel that is the word Gavriel. Right? This is a very famous name. People name their kids Gabriel. They don't know what they're doing. The word Gavriel is from the word Gibor, strong, strength. When power comes down, very often in the form of, let's say, fire, Gavriel is good with fire, okay, strength. So he is the angel of certain strength, that things that come down to the world. The third angel that came, his name was called Michael. Michael is the Tsar of the very connected to the Jewish people, and he was the main of the three angels that came. He was the one that came to tell Avram he's going to have this child. Okay, he's going to have a child. So you have Gabriel, Michael, and Raphael, and then what happens is after they tell Avram, so one leaves, and two go on their way. Two, they all leave after they tell Avram he's going to have a child, and he tells him to do he did the circumcision already, he tells him to have a child. So what happens is that two of them continue on their mission, one of them leaves. Who stayed and who went? Where were they going? Where was the next station in their mission? That the angels were going to Sodom. That's right. And what happened was that God was going to overturn the cities of Sodom. Sodom and Gomorrah were the two main ones, but there were 5 different cities there. And what happened was that God was going to destroy these cities because they were so corrupt, they were going to have this supernatural disaster. Okay? And what happened was that Hashem still wanted to send down these spiritual forces to come somehow, whatever means that they were in. It's a big discussion what it mean that they were in the form of human beings. According to one opinion, it was a dream, but the most commentaries understand that the deeper meaning is that somehow they came in a form that they were able to perceive them, because you can't perceive an angel with your eyes. It's not what it is, a spiritual force. However, they came down in a form that we ought to perceive them. So one of them leaves, two of them goes down. The Malach of Gabriel, the angel called Gabriel, and the angel called Raphael, because the angel of Gabriel, which is strength, is going down now to be the catalyst, the spiritual law that's going to lead to the destruction of the city of stone. And Raphael, who's the word of healing, is his messengership has to do with healing people, and he's therefore going to take Lot and heal him by taking him out of the city, him and his family. So Lot's going to get saved. Now, why was Lot saved? And we talked about Lot before. Was he a good guy? Not so good guy? Lot's a very, very, mixed kind of character. One of the things that was the turning point in Sodom's fate, as we said, was there was a girl who gave some bread to a poor person, and the people said, that breaks the rules. You can't do charity here. And they tied her up, they poured honey over her body, they put her up on the roof until the bees came and stung her and killed her. According to the Midrash, that was Lot's daughters, one of Lot's daughters. And he had trained her to do kindness. So you see, Lot was certainly was a good guy, but as we said last time, he went to this place, Sodom, which was a bad place. And they actually, but now he's, they didn't want to take wayfarers, they didn't want to take poor people in. He was rich, right? He already became rich. So they took him in. And they made him a judge. That day, so they made him a judge. He was actually now somebody was in importance. And he's like this kind of somewhat good guy from Abraham's training, living in this weird place. And now the scene's about to be set. Sodom is going to be destroyed. But before that, Hashem says, well, it's not appropriate for me not to reveal to the prophet Abraham what I'm going to do. Because Abraham, the name Avraham, his name became Avraham. It stands for Av Hamon Goyim. It stands for the father of many nations. And we talked about that one time. We talked about really how so much of the modern world, as we know it, comes out from Abraham. And we described that many times. We said the Jewish people come out, what we call the Western society, and the Christian society will come out from Asa, we talked about, and Yishmael is from the Arabs, and also, so a tremendous, and Abraham is considered to be like the father of the world in that way, all the nations. Anyone who converts is considered to be a son of Abraham and Sarah. So Abraham is really the turning point of the world right now. So God said, these are kind of his people. I got to tell him what I'm doing. Hashem comes to Abraham in a prophecy. As the angels leave, they're going on their mission. Two of them go, one of them leaves, and two of them goes down to this place called Stone. And Hashem, in a prophecy, tells Abraham, Stone is a bad place. I'm going to destroy it. Now, this is the worst place in the world. Really, really bad place. If Hashem told you that, what would you say? Good for them. Yeah, they deserve it. Let them die. That's what Abraham says. That's not his approach. Abraham starts praying for the people. And this is a significant switch here. Noah, we said, was a righteous person. He rebuked his generation for years and years. There's going to be a flood. But in the end, he didn't really pray for them. He said, all right, I tried. Abraham starts praying for the people of Sodom. And he goes through this whole discussion with Hashem. If there's 10 righteous people in every city, it should save the people. And if there's 9, we could add you as Hashem. You'll be as if there's. So he goes through this whole calculation trying to save the people of Sodom, which is a tremendous lesson that, that a person has to have. It's a famous thing. We've all heard about that today. But this is where you see it. Same thing when somebody's hurting your feelings and hurting you. The very famous story in the Talmud, which is it's quoted now and all faiths quote it, but it comes from Psalms. It comes from these concepts. A very famous case where there was one rabbi named Rabbi Meir, and there were these guys in town that were harassing him and torturing him, and he started saying, okay, he started praying, okay, God, take care of these guys. His wife said, no, don't do that. says the verse says, "Yitamu chatoim min haaretz." It says, and sins will be removed from the land. Said to him, the verse in Psalms doesn't say sinners, it says sins. So pray that they don't become sinners anymore and they'll stop hassling you. So he prayed for them that they should change, and they changed, and they stopped hassling him. That's the approach. So this is Abraham now praying for the people of Sodom, trying to save them. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever it is the conclusion of God says, well, no, there's nobody good there. The only guy who's like half decent is Lot. And I'm going to save him, not because I'm saving him. Why? Because of you. I'm saving him because of the merit of Abraham. So Lot's going to get saved, but not even on his own merit. He's the only guy there that's got something going on, and it's really, but it's not really him. It's really because of Abraham. There's it's a very interesting. There's a Zohar that says that even though Abraham did a very, very great thing to pray for these people, it says it was a good step, but it wasn't the step of Moshe. Because Moshe, when God says, I'm going to destroy the Jewish people, he says, he says, remove me from your book. It means Moshe not only prayed for them, he said he put them first. He put the people first over him as his own personal thing, which is incredible. It's an incredible level. But that's the Zohar says, you see the flow, that Noah was one, and Abraham was another, and then Moshe was even greater.
Yeah, but Moshe was talking about the Israelites.
Right.
Abraham, this is the Sodomites.
So it's a very good question. It's a very, very good question. We're going to get to this today because we talked about Abraham having 10 tests. And one of the tests he just had was the test of circumcision. Now, what's the big test? What's the big deal about that? Everyone's smiling here. Come on, it's Abraham. That's not the problem. Okay, you're 99 years old. You're circumcising yourself. It's a little bit unusual. I understand. But he did. That wasn't really his test so much. Like it was. I'm not saying it was easy, but that wasn't really what was the harder part. There was an emotional part that was harder for Abraham. You know what that was? Abraham, at this point, is a universalist, right? There really is no Jewish people. And Abraham, he's bringing everybody in. And he is making a world movement. And at this point, he really wants everyone to be equally in the line of the calling. He's trying to bring the whole world in, but no one's doing it. So he got his followers, but that's where. Now the problem with the circumcision, one of the problems is that Abraham's style, as we talked about, the way he got people to be involved in spirituality, is a very beautiful style, which is what I try to tell us that's what we try to emulate. He opened his tent on four sides, said everyone come in, and he fed them and he gave them, and he was, and people were not used to this. They're like, why are you doing this? And he's saying because that's what God does. God has given us life. So all of a sudden he opens people's eyes to experience God in a way of kindness that no one did before. And then he would say to them, I only ask one thing from you. Now I gave you food, you thanked me. I'm not the guy to thank. It's good you thank me also, it's nice, but it's not my food, it's Hashem's food. So thank Hashem. Thank God. So if some people did it, that was good. The way the story goes, they didn't do it, he pulled out a bill. So you got a choice. You want to pay for it, or you want to thank God for it. So there was a certain amount of a sense of, wow, I could relate to this guy, or what he's going to give me, and he wants me just to thank God, and that's enough. Now all of a sudden, people start hearing about the circumcision, and they're like, I know what's going to be on this bill at the end, It's going to be, what's he going to ask me to do? It's like, thanking God's one thing, but it would take me to the back room. I don't know what's going to happen here. It's like, I don't know what the deal is. It's a little nerve-wracking. So Abraham's other issue with the circumcision was now he becomes separated from the people. people of the world said, I mean, in America today it's fairly common, but you have to understand that there's no one else in the world who was circumcised this time. There's nobody. It was not done. Even you see throughout the Torah, throughout the Bible, always, the person knows someone's Jewish because of the circumcision. No one else did it. So this was a very, so Abraham's issue right now is he does want to save the whole world. He does want all the Sodom. Now again, we as human beings, and this is part of what we talk about in this class, is that there is a universal mission for all people, and we do see that. But again, as we talked about many times, when the world was first created, there was the option for people to take their spirituality whatever level they wanted to. Right? There was no Abraham. And I said before, God gave 2,000 years, and people did not connect to God at all. They became pagans and barbarians. Abraham was different. And God said, okay, from you is going to be the line of my representatives, my main representatives in the world. And then afterwards, when they gave the Torah to the Jewish people, he offered it to the whole world. People said they didn't want it. What God said was that the whole world is part of this vision, but the Jews take on a primary obligation. That's called the 613 commandments. The non-Jews take on the 7 commandments of Noah, which is 7 commands of morality and righteousness. And that's really the setup. So Abraham is going to be the one who's taking on this tremendous responsibility, and the whole world takes on a lesser obligation. Again, as I said many times, though, the Talmud says if a non-Jew keeps the 7 laws of Noah, the laws of morality, they're compared to the high priest of Israel, because you're doing what you're supposed to do. Somebody feels the Jews do not encourage conversion. Because why? Because every person has made in the divine image of God, and every person should express what they want to express. Somebody comes along and says, "No, I feel that I want to convert. I'm Jewish." Then we would let them convert. But that's not something that we look to do. We say that every person has their mission, their job, and non-Jews should keep the 7 laws of Noah. So at this point in the world, it's not even the Jewish people yet. It hasn't happened. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. Good. All right, so let's keep going. So now at that point, so this is crazy stuff. So now the angels go down to Sodom, and Lot sees them and says, "Oh, what you guys doing here? Wayfarers don't come around." And he says, "We're okay. He says, why don't you come to my house?" And no, we'll sleep in the street. It's fine. Now Lot knows sleeping in the street is not going to go very well in Sodom. They'll be dead in the morning. So he says, well, come to my house. But go around the back way. Because he doesn't want anyone to see. Now, that's pretty impressive. All right? You can't take it away from Lot that he realized people were going to be killed. They know what they're walking into. He doesn't know they're angels. And he brings them to his house. Even so much so, it says he made matzahs for them. He had a tradition from Abraham when it was going to be in the future. Prophetically, Abraham knew when was going to be a time of Passover, and they ate matzahs there. It says he fed them matzahs. He was like already keeping some of the things from Abraham. So they come into the house. Now, he starts to feed them. Now, his wife says, "What are you doing? Like, we live in Sodom. This is a beautiful place. We don't want these degenerates coming out around here. Who needs these people? You're bringing these bad customs to our town." So he's like, no. So they bring the food over, and then he needs some salt. And salt is his wife. "Do you have any salt?" He says, "We're out of salt. I'll go to the neighbor." She goes to the neighbor. She goes, "Do you have any salt here? My husband has these guests. He wants to feed them some food and needs some salt." She didn't like the idea of what was going on. So the word spreads like wildfire. So next thing they know, people have the house surrounded. Now, before that, the angels were talking to Lot, and they said, "Tell me, what are the people of this town like?" He says, "Most of them are not so good, but he's trying to But what are you going to say? The next thing he's trying to defend them. The next thing they have the place surrounded, and they're bashing on the door, and they say, "Okay, send us the guest you have in here," and we know the name of the place, right? So you could figure out the rest there. So, and we will act inappropriately with your guests. Now, Lot does something apparently very, very strange. He says, no, do not bother these people that come into my house. Here are my 2 daughters. Take them instead.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty strange, huh? How do you explain that? You can't.
I was hoping you would.
So the best way to explain Lot's intention, we want to give him good intention, the best way to explain Lot's intention was that he figured, and this is one of the explanations on the positive side. How a human being decides to do certain things, I don't know. But a lot of times you do things with different intentions, different levels. This may have been, or was, according to some, his positive side. Not very positive. It's not going to, but at least make some sense. He figured that if they were just going to take these guys there and do whatever they're going to do, it was just going to be a crazy thing, and everyone was going to do what they were going to do. He figured if he sent his daughters out, there would end up being a brawl amongst the people of who gets to marry the girl. And so, according to the best way to sort of defend Lot, was that he said it was men that was surrounding the place, and if he would provide his daughters, females, then the people would sort of fight amongst themselves to who gets them, and they would not just do a just immoral act with them. That's the explanation. There's another explanation which is also true, that Lot, but this is very strange. It's not good. That Lot felt that type of an act, right, would be less denigrating than the other one.
But these were angels. They were not really in trouble.
No, they weren't in trouble. But the question is, what was Lot thinking? Because there's something screwy going on here. There's something abnormal. So one explanation was, if I want you to say an explanation, he viewed sort of some type of illicit male-female things as being, okay, well, that's kind of the way the world is. And so he kind of thought, all right, well, this is better than that. That's the other explanation of Lot's intention. So neither one is too good, and he's not our daddy.
Yeah. Just the thing is, that's true, but this is his daughter.
Right.
Yeah. That's where.
Yeah. It's very, very weird.
Yeah.
It's very, very weird. But that's Nachmanides says that he just kind of thought, okay, well, you know what? This is just the way the world is.
How many daughters did he have?
That's why he lived, obviously.
What happened to them?
How many daughters did he have?
We know at least of 5 altogether. We're going to see that there are 2 that don't come, 2 that do go, and 1, according to the Medrash, that was killed. That was the one with the honey. Okay? So now what happens is that he says that, and that doesn't even go over too well either. The people go, they grab the door, they're going to break the door down, and what happens is that it says then the malachim, the spiritual forces, got involved, and they blinded the people in the way, and they took Lot in, and they said, okay, it's time to get out of here, because they revealed that they're going to destroy Sodom, and what's happening? Are you in or out? Take yourself and your wife and all of your family, and where Hashem is going to save you. So Lot's flipping out. So first he goes to his daughters that are married and says, God is destroying Sodom. Now, could you imagine going over to someone and saying that? Like, there's going to be other people. They start laughing at him, like you're a nut job. Daddy finally lost it, and the son-in-laws are like, the father's not doing so well. It's going to be destroyed. So they laughed at me, and then the angel said, "No, we're leaving. Now's the time." And he gets his 2 daughters that are with him, and his wife, and they leave. And the angels say, "Don't look back. Don't look back." Should be a good song, right? Don't look back. Now, she looks back, and she turns into what? Pillar of salt. I think they say, I don't know if everyone thinks, but there is. If you go down to the area of the Dead Sea, there's like a pillar. I don't know if that they say it's her or not. I don't know if it's true, but it's like one strange, very kind of like tall pillar. But you go to the Dead Sea. It's just a fascinating area because it's really Gafris Melech, sulfur and salt, says it was, and that area, which is very different than what it was, because before the destruction of Sodom, it was the most beautiful place in the world. It was just very, very green. And like you go down now to the Dead Sea, it's like it's yes, it has healing powers with all the sulfur and all of it, but it's very, very different. So she turns around and she transforms. And why pillar of salt? And why can't you look? What's wrong with looking? You go to a movie, it's like the scary parts in the movie, and you kind of like this, and you peek, and you just kind of look at it. She was curious, like, what's going on? Maybe she wants to go back.
Her daughters are here.
Oh yeah, okay. I hear that. What else was I going to say?
Didn't she reveal? She caused the whole problem.
Yeah, she caused the problem with the salt.
Yeah.
And why can't you look back? Because you have to understand that you do not, on your own, you don't merit to be any different than they are. You're being saved now for other calculations. Essentially for the sake of that you're Abraham's relative and you had connections with Abraham, you did things for Abraham. So you're being saved for that reason. So when you look back on someone and say, oh yeah, I know these people, yeah, they're getting what they deserve. No, you deserve the same thing. So looking back on them is as if like you're now justified in being the spectator for this experience, and you don't. And if you look back, then you're now saying that, okay, I'm above it, and you weren't above it. Once you look back, it was as if she was feeling herself different and worthy to be more than that, and she wasn't. And that's why it's salt, because she was really part of them. But what happens is now, this is wild stuff right now. They go into an area first, a town where Lot asked the angels not to destroy because it was founded later than Sodom and Gomorrah, so it wasn't as bad or as long. And then they're afraid that that's going to get destroyed also, so they go up into into a cave. Now, miraculously, this is a setup. God has created that there's wine in the cave. How did the wine get there? How do you set it up? I don't know. Do you make someone walk in with a bottle of wine, hang out there and forget his wine? I don't know. But however it was, they found wine in the cave. I don't think they brought the wine. The wine was there. The Medrash says it was. And now you had a hard day. Your wife turned into a pillar of salt. The entire city got destroyed. And you're sitting up in a cave, with your daughters. What do? You start drinking, I guess. I don't know. Starts drinking. And now this is the very wild stuff. The daughter says, the oldest one says, and this is amazing how they saw it, but they kind of thought that there was no one left in the world except for Lot. They thought Lot was so great that there was no one left in the world but him. And now they had actually good intentions. They were like, the world's going to be destroyed. There's no one left. So we have to go and give our father wine, get him drunk, have relations, and build the world again. And they get him drunk to the point where in Jewish law, there's a certain level of drunkenness called shichus shel lot, the level of drunkenness of lot that you don't know what's going on anymore. No one should ever get to that level. So Lot gets so drunk that they name a level of drinking after him. Take the balloon test, whatever that test is. And it goes all the way to the side, and you hit the Lot level. So so he takes the Lot level, and then it says he didn't realize what was going on when it was happening, but then afterwards, he kind of realized something happened during the time, but then he realized. But the next night, he didn't stop him drinking the next night. Go figure that one. And that was the second daughter, the younger one, and she also was now with Lot, and they both bore children, got pregnant, and they named their kids. One named the kid Moab, which is why it's because in Hebrew Moab means Me'av, from father. Not so discreet. Not so discreet, I don't know, something else like Wayne or something like that. I don't know. Bob. It's like call the guy Bob. Okay, it's called Moab, and the other one was called Ammon, which was a little bit more discreet. Ammon is B'nai Ami, the son of my my nation. He comes from my own nation. Okay? Now, you can imagine when this happens, the next day when you kind of go outside and you realize that the world is not destroyed, it doesn't look too good. So when they came out of the cave and time passed and everyone was like, hey, wait a minute. Those girls aren't married. So word about Lot's situation sort of spread. And Abraham decides that he's moving town. First of all, he had two issues. One is he lived near Stone, and now there were no more travelers anymore to take him in. His whole thing was taking the travelers in. So that was gone. And then all of a sudden it was like, the story about Lot is like, okay, I'm out of here. I got to move. And he moves to another area called the land of Plishtim, which is on the western side of the land of Israel. You had a question?
Who's left? I mean, Sodom and Gomorrah are demolished.
Yeah.
Everything in that area.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like a city like the size of Atlanta. I mean, it's that whole little area. So you go, an hour down south to Beersheba. You go an hour. You're in. There are other places. It's 5 cities. It's true, but cities in those days, on the whole, were not like cities today. It was like it would be called like a town. So the 5 cities there were not. I don't know how much area they took over, but they probably took the area which is today in Israel, that area called the Dead Sea area, which is a decent size, but then there were other people that came, and and the word spread. So Abraham moves on. He moves on. All right. How much time we got here? What time here? What? All right. Let's do one more thing with Abraham and try to see if we can get some to. So Abraham goes to the town. Now at this point, if you remember the episode he had before when they took Sarah, Abraham is nervous about the same thing. And he says to Sarah, but this time he doesn't ask her because it didn't work out so good last time. So he tells her, says, you got to say you're my sister. And the same thing happens. And this guy, Avimelech, the king of the Philistines, takes Sarah. And he also gets punished. All of his orifices get closed. He can't do things right. Things are getting weird in his house. And at part of that, he shouldn't touch Sarah. He's like, and he realizes things are going weird. And he realized that and God comes to him in a dream and says, why'd you take take the wife of this guy. He's a prophet. And so he says, I didn't know. And God says, return the woman, and then so the dream, he says, well, but they won't believe me. He says, there's a prophet. He'll know you didn't touch her. He'll know everything. Return, and that's what happens. Now, there's a very obvious question here. What's going on? I mean, Abraham does this to Sarah. This is the second time. You know, I don't know. Is this the right thing or wrong thing he's doing? So the first time I told you the rationale why he did it was he did it because he maintained that he would be able to sort of spy out the situation and figure out who has their eye on Sarah, because if he's the older brother, then what they used to do in the olden days is that they would go to the father or the older brother to marry the woman, so he'd be able to keep his eye on the situation. Well, that didn't work so well last time because the king took her, and that was going to happen again. So I don't know if we could answer the same understanding of what he was thinking. So let me tell you what it says in the Zohar. It's hard to understand this, but it says in the Kabbalah that Abraham saw in Sarah that the divine presence was always with her. That's amazing. It's amazing. Like he always saw the divine presence was with her, so he knew she'd be protected. And it's a fascinating thing because spiritually, men and women are different in things, but the commentaries, the Talmud says that Sarah was a greater prophetess than Abraham was. And that's why there's a verse when at a certain time where we'll see what she says. She tells him to do something, and he's apprehensive. God says, no, listen to her. And the reason is because she was a greater prophetess than he was. Okay? Actually, as a matter of fact, it says women have a greater quality to be a prophet than a man to a certain degree. Even though there were many male prophets and many female prophets in the Jewish people. We don't realize that. You read the stories in the Torah, you say, okay, how many prophets were there? There were 42, 49, there were 42 men, 7 women, you read the stories. But there were actually over 1 million prophets in the Jewish people during this period of time. Over a long time. But there were schools of prophets. It's a crazy thing. You send your kid to prophet school. You're not going to make any profit there. That's the problem. It's like, well, imagine that, telling your Jewish mother that. Yeah, where are you going to school? I'm going to go study, become a prophet. Do they pay anything for that? No, they don't. Can I get a job at that? But there were prophet schools. The guys would go. Now, here's the problem about prophet school. You just know, which is a fascinating. We'll probably talk about it this week in this week's Torah portion. But everything else, every other kind of job you want to do in your spiritual work, if you try, you can succeed. For example, if you want to be a righteous person, you could do acts and become a righteous person. You want to be a holy person, there are acts to do to become a holy person. There's one case where you can't, and that's prophecy. Because there were people in prophecy school who would be studying the prophets, but they would never have communication. Now, communication from Hashem didn't always mean that he told you the future or what to do. That's why there were so many prophets, but they weren't recorded like we have them. The ones in the Bible, the ones in the Torah, are the prophets that their prophecies were meant for future generations. But you have a prophecy like it could be anything. God can be communicated, and they could tell you something. They could tell you, hey, look, you left your donkey around the block. I'm not saying it would be something obviously much greater, more significant than that, but it might be a personal thing. The only prophets that are recorded are prophets that their prophecies were relevant for future generations. But Sarah was actually a greater prophetess than Abraham. So what happened was that Abraham saw her and said, she'll be protected. And she was. And that's exactly what happened. Abimelech takes her, and then he gives her back to Abraham, and he gives her money to prove that he didn't touch her, and this and that. And then what happens is he says, "Listen, I'm having a hard time here. Like, since I took your wife, we can't go to the bathroom. I don't know if they couldn't do it. It says that they were closed up, So Abraham prays Abraham prays for Avimelech to be healed. And afterwards it says that God answered Sarah and she became pregnant. And this is a very amazing principle we learn from this. When you have something that you need and someone else has something that they need, if you pray for that person, even though you need something, God will answer what your needs are first because you put the other person's needs before yours. This is a great trick. If you want to get answered, find someone who needs something, pray for them so they'll answer you first. No, I'm kidding. But it's the conundrum because once you start doing it, once you hear this, you can't be. How do you be honest with yourself? Please give that person that thing. Give that person $10 million, please, please, please.
Let them win the lottery.
But it does represent the unique nature of this thing. The unique nature of this is that right now is that a person has to, when you're in pain, when we're in pain, we focus on ourselves. And that really is. People who are in pain, you can't blame them half the time because they can't think. They're selfish. They can't think about anything. They're too much in pain. So part of the system is when you get out of it, you think about other people. On a spiritual level, yes, your pain is answered. God answers your prayers first. It also requires you to be more an expansive person. We said many times, how do you love everybody? What you love people is when you see people are part of your world. You extend your own self so that I can love them. When you're in this little world, so that I have no connection to these people. When you start to see that everyone in the world is represents a quality, a divine spark, and you see that in people, and you want to therefore go and say, "Oh wow, I really want to help these people because I feel connected." So then you're able to really help them because you see them as an extension of yourself to whatever degree. So this was a story of Avimelech. Sarah gets pregnant. And she has a child. And what happens is, Hashem makes an incredible miracle here, as it will happen. But Yitzchak looks exactly like Abraham. You've seen people like that, the father and the kid, most times you get a comment, but you see sometimes looks exactly like the father. That happened here. But there's also a pragmatic reason why it happened. You know why? Because if you're married to someone for all these years and you didn't have a kid, and then she gets taken by Avimelech, all of a sudden she gets pregnant, that doesn't sound too good. So Hashem made it that he looked just like him. But the people of the generation, they were still wise guys. They still didn't want to believe this miracle happened. Because to say Abraham had this miracle, what do you mean? It's like, this is there's something with cognitive dissonance. You don't want to believe something that's going to have these ramifications. If Abraham is correct and everything is true and God is protecting him this way, it obligates you. So people wanted to say, this is a joke. Nah, it's not. So there was this, Abraham, they made a party for Yitzchak after his birth. Of course, how old, at what age, it could be he was 2, different explanation, how old. But what happened was, in those olden days, women, it was very fancy to not to nurse your child. You had a wet nurse. Yeah, you had another, like the fancy people had the wet. It's kind of like in the 50s and 60s when they told everyone to give your kids bottles because only the lower class nursed their children. And it kind of messed up our genes to this day. Not giving the kids antibodies they can get in mother's milk. But anyway, so they didn't have formula, so they had nurses, and these fancy ladies would lose their milk, and they would bring their wet nurses that would nurse their babies. So all of a sudden, this famous Abraham is having a party, and to celebrate this birth. Now again, in the beginning, you would say Sarah gave birth. Because everyone knew in the beginning. But after 2 years, is this really Sarah's baby? So people started saying, come on. You believe that stuff? This is not Abraham's kid. It's not even, for Avimelech, all right, whatever. But you know what? It's not even Sarah's kid. They picked up some kid along the street, and they said, we had a baby. They didn't have a baby at this age. So everyone wanted to embarrass Sarah, and what they did was they came with all their babies, and they let the wet nurses stay home. And all of a sudden, the kids are screaming, and they're screaming their heads off. All these little babies. There's no way to nurse them. What do you do? So Sarah says, give him to me, I'll nurse him. And Hinika Banim Sarah, and she nursed all the babies. It was like abnormal, but she was to nurse all the babies. And like that flipped people out now, because now all of a sudden everyone was really seeing that this was true. This miracle happened. And as we said last time, this was the miracle of Yitzchak. And that day, it says in that day that she became pregnant. The women in the world who couldn't give birth became pregnant. It changed the world. It was a day of Yitzchak, of joy. As we said last time, the name Yitzchak, I think I said last time, I'll repeat it again because I didn't. The name Yitzchak, which means a joke, laughter, right? If you flip the letters around, it spells the word Kates Chai, end of life. And what that represents is that the greatest joke, is when you think it's going one way and it goes the opposite way. That's a good all good punchlines goes one way, it's the opposite. What's the greatest joke in the world? When you think you're dead, you think it's the end of life, and your soul leaves and you realize it's the beginning, right? That's funny. It's hysterical. It's like you think it's and that's I gave a class when I was in New Jersey now on Ashes Chayil. That was the verse I talked about. It says, the woman of valor laughs on the last day. That's one of the explanations. She laughed because right now she realizes that she is not a finite being. She has an eternal soul. And what happens is when it comes the end, she's laughing on the last day because she realizes that she's eternal. Yitzchak is the laughter, the ultimate laughter. What happens is that it looks like the Jewish people are finished. Abraham's 100 years old. Sarah's 90 years old. This is never going to happen. Now is true laughter. And that's why historically, the Jewish people's history, for those that are honest and look at it, they realize it's abnormal. Many, many great philosophers, non-Jewish philosophers recognize that. I forgot who it was. I think it was Dostoevsky. Somebody they said, you want to see this God in the world, look at the Jews. Because it makes no sense. Nothing makes sense. Yeah, I told you a story about the cadet. I told you a story about the cadet? Yeah, I told you a story about the cadet. So cadet, he was a Jewish cadet, and he complained in West Point, why did not study any of the wars of Israel? And they told him, it's not anti-Semitism, it's because it makes no sense. You should never want any of those wars. We can't teach it, because it's beyond nature. That's Yitzchak. Yitzchak now is the ultimate laughter, because right now, what's happening is that when it looked like it was Kate's Chai, end of life, it's the beginning. It looks like this Abraham and Sarah revolution in the world is going to be over, but it's not. It's just starting on a new level now. Now they have the child, and he's going to grow up. And I will tell you one last point, because we'll leave it for next time. And this is the conclusion we talked about last week also. When he grows up, he's going to have some contention now from his sibling, Yishmael. That we talked about last time. Because it was very hard for, all of a sudden, Yishmael was the heir of Abraham. And now all of a sudden comes along Yitzchak, and he's the guy. And that's going to create the tension that we're going to see next time, which is going to lead Abraham to the final of his 10 tests. And when he finishes his 10 tests, we'll see next week how that led to his ultimate greatness and the completion of his soul and of his job in this